I should say. And we're joined by our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, I'm doing well. We've got a tropical storm thing coming through today, but it should be pretty short-lived and be very weak by the time it goes through here. But, again, it clears out of the way for football this weekend, and I still argue with folks that it may not be week one, but it's a good slate, and we're having ball, as you told me before.
That's right. It doesn't matter who's playing. I love college football. Brent, before we jump into college football, I'm curious, are you a big NFL guy?
Nowhere near as I am with college, but certainly because of what we do, we follow it.
Yeah, well, as we all know, the NFL kicks off tonight. The Bucs against the Dallas Cowboys about 8:20, I guess, is kickoff. Brent, there's a first of all, before we jump into the games, what's going on? Give us an update on what's going on with the Big 12.
Big 12 is ready to expand. Big 12 presidents have a call scheduled for Friday morning in which they will formally vote UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU into the league. So the vote is considered just a formality. Now, they will end up having to negotiate some kind of an exit fee involved with this, too. Now, they really would like to start playing, get this now, in 2023, which is only in a couple of years. It's 23 months from now at that time. So, question is, what happens to the American Conference? They've got a really good commissioner in Mike Ridaught, who used to be a television exec, which has helped him immensely in his job, but he really knows what he's doing. So, if you get rid of these four teams out of the American, who do you add? The possibilities are UAB, Air Force, Army, Colorado State, Boise State, North Texas, Charlotte, who's really come on, Coastal Carolina, who's really come on, and also Arkansas State is involved, possibly with that too. So we won't belabor the point here, but this is what we're talking about as far as TV markets and number of people. Houston's market is going to be very big. Orlando, Salt Lake City, and Cincinnati. So, but, I mean, that's kind of your plan right now, Shane. And geography probably doesn't fit, particularly for Cincinnati and UCF. But if you're Cincinnati and UCF, do you turn down a chance to go to a Power 5 conference? And obviously the answer is no.
No, absolutely not. We got a Facebook Live here brought to you by Mellon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Trey says, morning, I think Boise State would be a better choice than BYU. Do you think BYU is a better choice, Brent, because of the market that you just said there, the Utah, Salt Lake City area over Boise?
Probably. And look, I mean, I agree too that Boise would have been fine, but I'm sure they crunched the numbers and had all this kind of had all the stats comparing the two, and decided that they would go with BYU. So that will be my guess as to how they made the decision. Yes.
Yeah. All right, Brent. So let's look at some of the, there's a lot of people don't think week 2 is a very good slate, but there's still some big games across the country.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, obviously the Oregon at Ohio State game is huge. A lot of that's going to be determined how Kayvon Thibodeau, who arguably, frankly, may be the best player in the country, whether he is able to play or not. Iowa State is not just a state rivalry, but it's basically two top 10 teams at this point, and And again, Friday night, Kansas at Coastal Carolina, which is now a better game than we thought. North Carolina A&T at Duke, North Dakota State at Utah State, UTEP at Boise State, by the way. That's on FS1. So, that's just a little bit of it without going in the SEC yet. That I would agree. I think it's all football, and it's still a pretty good weekend.
Yeah, it really is. A game that's kind of interesting to me for some reason. I don't know why. But Washington, as you know, was a ranked team who lost at home to Montana. Yes. Now they're traveling to play Michigan, who played pretty well in the Big House. So I think that's an intriguing game. We'll see. But I guess the marquee game obviously is Oregon. I can't buy into Oregon for whatever reason. I don't know if it's the quarterback play or what, but they didn't play great against Fresno, whether they were looking ahead. I don't really care. They just didn't impress me, and I can't get on the Oregon bandwagon for some reason.
They don't have the roster Ohio State does. And anyone who saw the Ohio State-Minnesota game last Thursday night, when the Five Stars decided they'd had enough of Minnesota and decided that they would bow up, they did. That was really a really good game, frankly. I give Minnesota a lot of credit. Unfortunately, they lost a tremendous running back, but I'm with you. And Oregon goes to Ohio State. I think Ohio State wins this game by 10 points before it's over.
Yeah, I think they win easily, honestly. We got a text on the Titan MR text line. It comes from Daryl. Daryl asks, "Good morning, Shane. Could you ask Brent what team or teams impressed him the most this past weekend?"
Well, I'm going to say probably Texas was one, because Shane and I talked about, that's a good question, Daryl. Shane and I talked about Louisiana, coached by Billy Napier, maybe pulling the upset. Instead, Texas won 38-18, which was very impressive. Look, I frankly think Kentucky was impressive.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into them a little bit more because they actually had a quarterback for the first time in quite a while. And at the end of the game, not the beginning, but by the end of the game, and even though they lost, I give a lot of credit to Florida State and getting Mackenzie Milton in the game. The thing that's odd about that is, if you remember, Jordan Travis lost his helmet, had to go out. Mackenzie Milton came in. Otherwise, I don't know if we would have ever seen Mackenzie Milton in that game. And he comes in and FSU almost wins.
Yeah, I mean, I know we'll talk about it later, but I still would like to know what Mike Norvell and his staff were thinking, because it was about 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And usually when a player loses their helmet, they come out for a play. They have to. Then they go right back in. Yeah. I'm just curious why the hell they didn't put him back in. And if you were going to play Mackenzie Milton, why wouldn't you have played him earlier in the game? It just made it was very weird to me. Okay, Brent, let's first of all, let's turn your car or truck into a rolling billboard for your business or brand with an eye-catching vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot this September. Mention promo code Shane, receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. Speaking with Brent Beaird here on the Titan MR hotline. Make sure you check Brent out on Twitter at Brent Beaird. All right, let's go around the SEC. Alabama was extremely impressive. However, they lost a really good player. I think his name was Christopher Allen, possibly.
Yes.
And then, then also Toa. I could probably pronounce his name wrong. He got injured in the game.
He did. He's okay. He sprained his elbow a little bit, but he's fine. Which Toa really played well too. Christopher Allen, as Shane mentioned, fractured his foot, and he unfortunately is out for the year now. Freshman Drew Sanders came in and replaced him, and really played well in the game. We got two birds with one stone here. One, Alabama really jumped on Miami, as they do pretty much everybody, dominated the game, scored 27 straight points, and then basically outgained Miami 501 to 266. maybe I'm Shane. I'm really curious what you thought about Bryce Young, the Alabama quarterback. But several Bama guys stood out. Trey Sanders, for instance, at running back, got a chance to play. Now, Bama plays Mercer, which they will win that one easy before they play Florida. But the thing I also wanted to say is, in hearing from some Miami beat writers during the week, the issue was, number one, Miami came into the game basically unscathed. They had no injuries. Two, they were very passive in that game. They had third and short, fourth and short, ran right up the middle in the strength of the Alabama defense. Didn't try to return any kicks. Did not get Derek King on the side at all or around the end. And look, it was a mismatch in terms of roster and in terms of coaching. So it ended up being a pretty easy win for Alabama. But Shane, I am curious what you thought about Bryce Young.
I thought he played well. I was surprised. I don't think they missed a beat with all the great players they lost on their offense. The thing that surprised me the most in that game, and I taped it and watched some of it here and there, was I thought Miami was so unsound defensively, Brent. You know, they blitzed a ton, but when they blitzed, they just left dudes wide open.
Sure.
There was nobody dropping into the zones, whether it was a zone blitz or what, but it was, I thought they looked like they hadn't been coached. I thought they were a poorly coached team and the talent level wasn't even close, but I don't know how good Miami's going to be this year. So we shall see. Arkansas had to come from behind against a bad Rice team. Is there any concern there in Fayetteville?
Well, I think there is. KJ Jefferson at quarterback is starting pretty slow. He was 12 of 21 for only 128 yards. And frankly, Arkansas got behind in the game, and they ended up rallying. To their credit, Traylon Smith at running back had 102 yards. Now, Arkansas and Texas has been as you know, incredible rivalry over the years. And least we forget, this is going to be a conference game
That's right.
in a few years. So that's what's going to be fun about this. As we mentioned, Texas beat Louisiana. B.J. Robinson is that Texas running back who played so well in the game, 103 yards. This will be a fun game. I mean, Arkansas hosts Texas. This will be a hard sellout. And frankly, now I think Texas wins the game, but there's just something about this rivalry that's very special. Arkansas has got to cut down on penalties. They had 13. Double digits is way too many. So this thing should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's a night game too, so it should be very compelling. I'm concerned a little bit for Arkansas, and I don't know how much or if they are missing the games. Their two best defenders, Bumper Pool and Grant Morgan, I know both got thrown out because of targeting, so I don't know how much they're missing of this game, so we shall see.
First half. Yeah. That's how that's how that will go, which is very unfortunate.
Brent, probably the most impressive performance from a player for me all week long was Bo Nix for the Auburn Tigers. I know they didn't play anybody, but if you go 20 of 22 on air, that's pretty damn good. And he did it in live action. So maybe Brian Harsin has coached this kid up and he fits their system. So Auburn could be a dangerous team. I know it's early, but what are your thoughts on Auburn?
He made good decisions. He was accurate, and he looked more comfortable. I'm curious if you saw that, and was very much in control. Now, he did check down through to the running backs when the deep pass was covered, had 5 completions to the tight end. So, in their running backs, take Bigsby. I'm not going to say he's the best in the league, but it doesn't take long to call roll in that class. Sean Shivers is incredibly explosive. Sean Jackson, Jarquez Hunter are also impressive too. So I would agree with you. Again, we take the competition into effect. Now, the defense did not force any turnovers. TJ Finley coming over from LSU was not impressive, but the main guys were, and that's what matters. They host Alabama State this weekend, and next weekend, not only do you have Florida playing Alabama, Auburn goes to Penn State, which will be easily, Shane, one of the better non-conference games in the nation next week.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one to watch for sure. All right, Gators coming off their win against FAU, travel to Tampa. I don't think this may be flying under the radar. A lot of people may not realize this, but Coach Mullen has a chance to get his 100th victory as a head coach.
Look, when you play in the SEC and coach in the SEC, anytime, whether you're a player or coach, if you're involved in 100 wins, that's pretty special. So, they need to shout that from the mountaintop at some point. Listen, this was a win's a win. They just did it differently. They had 400 yards rushing instead of 400 yards passing. The quarterback situation will straighten itself out. I mean, they both will play, and they both need to play. And look, Richardson was really good, but he was also good against a tired defense. I'm not taking anything away from what he did. The long touchdown run was very impressive. Emory Jones, the 2 picks is concerning, but he did run the ball okay. I thought the defense played well. Anytime that you've got as many sacks as they did, Zach Carter really played well too. Was impressed with Malik Davis and what he did. So look, was it perfect? No, but opening win, you got to play a lot of players, and you will continue to do that this week. And Shane, Gator fans who will outnumber USL fans. To me, this is a recruiting trip. It's what this is you want to get down in Tampa for several days and just get your name out there with these recruits by being there in person. I think that's a reason they're going down there as much as anything else.
Yeah, it's they should have no problems with South Florida at all. Georgia could be without JT Daniels. Looks like Carson Beck will be the starter at quarterback against UAB.
Maybe not confirmed as far as what Kirby's made up his mind. I'm actually surprised this got out, but JT Daniels, what we understand, aggravated some upper body core situation. We're not sure what all that happened. He took a hit a couple of weeks ago in a close scrimmage. That's what Georgia beat writers are saying. And he's still sore. I'm sure Shane's probably went through something like that in his career. And it just takes a while to get the soreness out. So the point is, he may not play against UAB, or he may be limited. Carson Beck from Jacksonville would be capable. Now, again, great win over Clemson. The defense was spectacular, getting 7 sacks, 6 from different players. That's what was really impressive. So, but offensively, Clemson's defense is good enough to where it pretty well shut Georgia down too. But this was just a good old-fashioned whoever ran the ball better, and Clemson got 2 yards rushing, which is amazing, 180 overall, not much at all. But I'm going to throw this caveat in here. UAB is really good. UAB, coached by Bill Clark, is a very underrated football team. They've got a quarterback who throws a really pretty long ball. So I'm not saying UAB is going to win, but I am saying, Shane, if Georgia's been told all week how great they are, UAB will come in and give them some initial trouble. They'll eventually take over and win the game, but don't be surprised if this thing is close during the game.
Yeah, Bill Clark has done a tremendous job with UAB, no question about it. Another team that really impressed me this week, and of course, Brent, I've said many times I couldn't buy into them until they could complete some passes. Well, they got a quarterback that can throw it, and they got an offensive coordinator who came from the Rams, and just his concepts really impressed me. And I think Kentucky was the only SEC matchup of the week. Kentucky hosts Missouri. I think the Wildcats have a chance to have a pretty good year.
This is an incredibly important game early because it's a divisional game, and I can't wait to see this. Will Levis did really well last weekend. They beat UL Monroe. As Shane said, they look confident in the passing game for the first time in a while. I'm curious, Shane, if you saw Wandale Robinson, the Nebraska transfer, he was pretty special in the game too. So big win. With that Josh Ali, who's another wideout, is going to be, I think, probably impressive for them too. Missouri had a good win over Central Michigan, minus their coach, who we know a little bit about, but because he had his appendix out. The Blaze Aldridge is a defensive star from Missouri. He played very well in the game. Connor Basilak also is a very good quarterback. Shane, that's what intrigues me about this game is Levis and in as far as Missouri having a competent passing attack too, and with Basilak, that makes this game very attractive. So, and by the way, hopefully Jim McElwain is doing much better after his surgery last week.
No doubt about it. There's some issues on the Bayou. I think Ed O has a long year ahead of him, Brent, after watching them. I know it's game one, but the Tigers, they'll get right against McNeese State. But tell us what's interesting about this game.
This is something that Shane and I have talked about this, that we cannot remember ever this happening. But the quarterback for McNeese State is Ed Orgeron's son. Now, have we ever seen a situation where, and maybe our listeners may remember this, but I don't ever remember a game in the SEC where the head coach of one team was coaching against his son with the opposition. I've never remembered that. That's an amazing fact, frankly.
It really is.
And how rare is that? But to your point, what blew me away, and we don't get shocked very often because we've seen so much, but I was shocked with this. I'll be honest with you. UCLA ran for 210 yards. LSU ran for 48. They just manhandled LSU in the line of scrimmage. Now, Ed Orgeron did not do himself any good walking in the stadium, getting to this verbal battle with the UCLA fan. And you got to remember, Ed Orgeron was at USC for a while, which I'm sure some of those old feelings raised up in him. But Shane, that was inexcusable, frankly. In UCLA, they've had a lot of fun with it. They've got him a blue T-shirt now they're selling about calling it Sissy Blue, which is what Ed called that fan. But look, and we'll get into LSU more later, but they weren't ready to play. Their offensive line had a lot of trouble. They had some transition there, and it just showed. But the bottom line was, it was an awful performance for LSU. And Shane, you may very well be right. This could be a very long year for them.
Yep. We got a Facebook Live from Brent. Brent says, Sissy Blue, but don't they wear purple? I think he was referring, Ed Orgeron was yelling at a UCLA fan that's wearing the powder blue T-shirt, and he called him a Sissy Blue. So Mississippi State comes from, 21 down, 20 down, late in the fourth quarter, somehow beats La Tech. Now they got a pretty good NC State team rolling into town. We don't know how good NC State is because they played a poor USF team, but that's a really intriguing game.
It is. There's no doubt. NC State, as you said, is Dave Doran's done a really good job with that crew too. But Mississippi State did about everything wrong you could do, and they trailed in the fourth quarter, down 20 points, and then were able to come back. And if folks saw the game, they were very fortunate in the game because Louisiana Tech missed a long field goal that just fell short as the clock was expiring, or they would have lost the game. So, again, State's got a lot of issues, but give them credit for what they did. 39 of 47, 370 and 3 touchdowns for Will Rogers. So quite a comeback for State.
Yes, indeed. And then just a little bit up the road, the Rebels go to Georgia, the Mercedes-Benz Dome, without their coach. However, their coach, he's getting a good check from this game, isn't he, Brent?
He's still getting a $100,000 bonus for any regular season win over a Power 5 non-conference team, even though he wasn't on the sidelines. How about that, Shane?
Yeah, that's pretty good. But he's got a damn good offense with a really good quarterback.
There's no doubt. Matt Corral is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, really very much a Heisman Trophy candidate. Shane, I'm curious if you were impressed with their defense. It looked much better, held Louisville to 355 yards, 4.6 yards per play. They host Austin Peay, which they will win, but the weapons are out of this world that they've got. So we'll get more into Ole Miss, but a really nice win on Monday night.
Yeah, they are much improved on defense, as there are a bunch of much improved teams across the country, and it's for one reason and one reason only, Brent. It's called the transfer portal. Get some experienced players, and they can turn it around. Real quick, Luke Doty, the quarterback at South Carolina, will he be back this week, or are they still going to go with the graduate assistant?
It's a game time decision, and then if he's not able to go, they'll go with Zeb Nolan, who did okay. But I'm telling you, this is a dangerous game for South Carolina. East Carolina is really fired up for this game. This means a lot to them in the Carolinas, so that we'll have to wait on the game to see where this goes. And really one of the better games that no one's talking about, Tennessee hosts Pitt in the Johnny Majors Bowl, we like to call it. And Tennessee last Thursday night got off to a decent start. Joe Milton III, transfer from Michigan, was okay in the game. So I think this is going to be a very interesting game. And another one real quick, Shane, A&M, Colorado playing Denver with that altitude. Haynes King had 2 touchdowns and 3 picks last week. So we've got some talented quarterbacks in the league, Shane, but they're going to have some seasoning before it's over, too.
Yeah, no doubt. I watched a lot of that game, A&M, because they're my pick to win the conference. I like that quarterback a lot. I know he threw 3 picks, but man, he is going to be a stud. I don't think there's any way Tennessee can beat Pitt, in my opinion. I don't like Tennessee's quarterback, and Pitt plays nasty defense under Pat Narduzzi, and they actually have a pretty solid quarterback themselves. Brent, appreciate it, my man. It should be another good week. Vanderbilt has no chance. They go to Colorado State, who lost to the Jackrabbits, but Vanderbilt is a bad football. I do think they're going to win one game this year, though, Brent. Yeah, they play Connecticut. Did you know they had UConn on the schedule?
Yeah. Look, they really do. But Clark Lee has a long rebuilding process in front of him, doesn't he?
He really does. Brent, great stuff as always. Enjoy the games. We'll talk to you next week, my man.
Can't wait, bud. Take care.
That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to take our first time out, come back. We'll kick off our Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup with the voice of high school football from the Prep Zone. Mike Ridaught will join us. You're watching and listening to Pot Up with Matthews in the morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law won't back down. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics. Live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Great Clips. It's gonna be great. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, South State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker, MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Wrap Spot, Okido America, Gators Dockside, Style Cuts, Big Mills Cheesesteaks. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Are you tired of being sidelined by nagging pain? Hi, I'm Emmett Smith, Hall of Famer and Dance with the Stars champion. Happy to tell you about QC Kinetics and their biologic therapies for treating pain without drugs or surgery.
Are you suffering from chronic pain in your hips, knees, shoulder, or lower back? Are you tired of living with arthritis pain? QC Kinetics offers natural pain treatment that can repair and restore damaged tissue in your joints.
Listen, I know pain, and I've seen firsthand how powerful biologic therapies can be. Patients at QC Kinetics rave about their result because they're getting their lives back. They're getting moving again.
These exciting regenerative treatments used to be available only to pro athletes like Emmett. Now they're available to anyone thanks to QC Kinetics. Call today for your free consultation.
Get long-lasting results from my friends at QC Kinetics.
Call QC Kinetics 352-400-4550. In North Central Florida, call 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, Celebration Points, where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Nike, Bass Pro Shops, Regal Cinemas, Le Macaron French Pastries, Dave & Buster's, Palmetto Moon, and now open the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Make your reservations today at spurriersgridirongrill.com. We will see you at Celebration Point, where the Gators go to celebrate. I want to thank Brent Beaird for joining us on the Titan MR Hotline. Now we're going to talk a little high school sports here on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup with our good friend from the prepzone.com, also Main Street Daily News, Mike Ridaught. Good morning, Mike. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, Shane. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. We're heading into week 3 of high school football already. Just kind of give us a brief synopsis. There's a couple of really good teams in the North Central Florida area this year.
Yeah, I think, at least in our area here in Gainesville, the top 2 teams, I would say, Buchholz, with Quan Lee, who's really this year at some point, Shane, he will become the all-time leading receiver in Alachua County history. He's about 300 yards away from setting the record. Creed Whittemore is back at quarterback, the coach's son, Mark Whittemore. So just that combination between those two, makes this Buchholz team really good. They had a nice little run last year. They finished 8-2. Were able to get all the way to the region semifinals before they lost to Niceville and what I thought was one of the best high school football games I've seen in a long time, a double overtime game. They jumped out to a 2-0 start. I was supposed to actually broadcast their first game of the year at Trinity Catholic in Ocala, and I get a phone call or a text from John Brantley down at Trinity Catholic at 5:01 on Thursday afternoon that the game had been canceled due to COVID issues. And it's just something that we're going to have to continue to try to navigate our way through. I was impressed with the fact that Buchholz finds an opponent Friday morning, game day, Denellen, and they go and whip up on Denellen 35-0. They followed that up with a nice win against my alma mater in Jacksonville, Sandalwood, an 8-18. So they're cruising right now. They're 2-0. They've got Eastside this week. I think they'll get the win this week. Now, next week will be interesting because they will play against Cardinal Gibbons of Fort Lauderdale, which is the defending 4A state champions. They've got bowls on the schedule as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them against some of these other teams. But you start with Buchholz just in particular because of the 2 that I mentioned in particular. Whittemore actually does have an offer from Florida on the table. Quan Lee has recently committed to the University of Central Florida. So both those guys are Division I players. They got some good defensive players. As I mentioned, their coach, Mark Whittemore, does a great job with that team. And then probably the next best team in the area, you got to say Hawthorne. They went all the way to the Class 1A state championship game last year. Cornelius Ingram, another guy that's done a great job with that program. They are beefing up their schedule. They're playing against tougher competition, and I'll get a chance to see them for the first time this week, Shane. They go to Swanee, Live Oak Swanee on Friday. That's a 5A team. But again, defense is their cornerstone. I got a chance to see PK Young against Eastside, and AJ Small had 4 touchdowns in that game, but they got shut out against Hawthorne at home in that game. So that defense of Hawthorne is legit. But they've got a couple of quarterbacks too, a nice little quarterback I guess you wouldn't call it a controversy, but they've got some options at quarterback. Tyler Jefferson transferred in from Fort White High School. Chaz Mackey was their quarterback last year, but it really does start with their defense. And Jalen Ruth is such a special player. He had 17 tackles in their last game. Just a phenomenal player. So yeah, as far as our area, by our area, I'm kind of just including the Main Street Daily News area, which is just north of Ocala. I would start with Buchholz, but then you've got Hawthorne right there as well.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100% on those two schools. And, it's interesting. You've seen so many schools at the collegiate level with the transfer portal improve their teams. Not that kids or coaches are recruiting, but Buchholz has a bunch of transfers from the local schools, as does Hawthorne. So it's definitely made them better programs. Who else maybe in Ocala? I mean, we all know Vanguard, but Bellevue is off to a 2-0 start under Brady Ackerman. Any schools down in the Ocala area jumping out at you?
You mentioned, Brady and the job that he's done. They're off to a good start. Now, they haven't really played a tough schedule. I don't know that they overall play a tough schedule, which is good for them as Brady's trying to build that program. But you got to give them props for what they've been able to do. They had a blowout win against a decent Bronson team. That Bronson team made it to the state playoffs and won their first ever state playoff game in school history last year. So, but again, they're a 1A school. Bellevue, is a 6A school. So you have to take that into consideration. But, Bellevue did do what they were supposed to do, and they had a nice win, a big win. They're 2-0 right now. And they, I think, will go to 3-0. They got Crystal River coming up this week. I think they get to win this week. Probably their toughest matchup will be, they've got Lake Weir on the schedule. They've got Vanguard on the schedule. But they've also got teams like Williston, which is winless right now on that schedule. After Crystal River, a Lecanto team. I believe Lecanto's 0-2 right now. So Springstead will be a tough matchup for them. Vanguard, as I mentioned, a little bit later in the season. But I think that's probably, in my opinion, the biggest surprise right now is the quick start that Bellevue has gotten off to, because they are averaging a little over 50 points a game, I believe, 64 in the last game. So they've been the biggest surprise. Denellen, let's see how they turn around. Let's see how they respond after getting shut out 35-0 against Buchholz. I do think at the end that Denellen will be there. We know Vanguard traditionally, they're always there. In fact, they're among the state rankings as well. So those would probably be the biggest teams. Trinity Catholic, after that loss to Clearwater Central Catholic, maybe they are a little bit down. They lost 3 Division I offensive linemen off that team last year, even though their quarterback Gonzalez is back this year. But yeah, as far as the top teams in Ocala, I would definitely say Vanguard. I'd probably put them at number 1, but I think that in the end, Denellen will be right there behind them at number 2.
We got a Facebook Live here brought to you by Melton Law. It comes from John. He says, Mike, what is your perception of 1A football in the Panhandle since you're in North Central Florida area? Also, your opinion on the Bluntstown, what they're doing with beating 2 big Georgia teams in back-to-back weeks.
That's obviously, impressive. And we know that 1A football is really good. Bluntstown, Baker, even Fort Meade. I know they're a little bit further south, but Madison County has been the cream of the crop in this area. And even though they lost big in their first game, that's another school that steps up in classification. So I don't really know much about Blountstown. I know that they are receiving votes in the 1A state rankings. Baker, obviously I got a chance to see them last year. But Hawthorne, even Wildwood. Wildwood's a team that you could probably mix in there as a legit contender, even though they still haven't played a game yet. This whole COVID situation has really affected some area teams. And Shane, I don't know if you heard this, kind of getting off subject of 1A a little bit, but last night I found out that PK Young had to quarantine, so their game is off against Newberry for tomorrow night. Fortunately for Newberry, they've picked up Crawfordville Wakulla, but yet another game that has been canceled due to COVID. Dixie County Trenton, a couple of 1A schools, same situation. That game was canceled on Friday due to COVID issues. They're trying to get the game rescheduled. I don't think that they will. But, 1A is super competitive. You got Stark Bradford, that's just dropped down to 1A. Union County put up 50 against them this past Friday night. And they really did it on the ground. So they kind of flexed their muscle against a Bradford team that I really felt like would kind of be in the mix in 1A Region 4. But Union County, don't count them out as well. The Tigers, with Andrew Thomas, who's won a state title, a couple of state titles at Trenton High School. I think Union County will be a team in the mix, talking about Class 1A.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Union County. I saw the score against Bradford last week, but I had forgotten. Bradford used to be like 4 or 5A, right? How did they drop down to 1A?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I have seen a couple of posts on social media talking about the number of students that they have, which exceeds that 1A limit. Madison County can kind of get away with it. It's just, again, I know it comes down to enrollment, but it doesn't seem fair that a team like Bradford, that a team like Madison County plays in that 1A classification. So that is something I probably need to check into to find out how Bradford was able to drop down from 4A down to Class 1A, because they're going to be tough. But again, we've seen this Union County team did a number on them, and I think Union County is a team to keep your eye on this year.
We had
and
a
that,
question.
by the way, Union County. Sorry, Shane, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Union County is another team that just had their game canceled. Now, it was canceled for different reasons, but it's the second time in 3 weeks that Union County has kind of had to scramble to find an opponent. In week 1, their game against Fort White was canceled due to COVID issues, but they were supposed to play a team out of Jacksonville this Friday, Harvest Community, I believe, out of Jacksonville. That game was canceled because Harvest Community did not have enough players to play the game. But fortunately for Union County, they were able to add a team out of Clearwater. They're a non-FHSA team, American Collegiate Academy. So that's who the Tigers will play on Friday night.
Gotcha. I had a Facebook Live. I lost it, but it was referring to Madison County. Didn't they play their first game with a bunch of guys suspended? Will those guys be back?
I had not heard that, but that would make sense based on the score that I saw. Again, I was a little surprised that they got beat as bad as they did. So that would certainly make sense. I think Madison County, they didn't drop in the rankings. I know that. So maybe that impacted that. They're ranked number 1 in the state, even though they lost big in their first game.
A couple things before we let you go here. We're speaking with Mike Ridaught on the Titan MR hotline. You can check him out on prepzone.com, also Main Street Daily News. Who y'all calling tomorrow night?
We actually have 2 games that we're going to do every week, Shane. We'll have an audio game of the week at mainstreetdailynews.com, and I will be calling the radio games on 106.9 FM out of Gainesville. Our audio game is now Wakulla at Newberry instead of PK Young at Newberry, which I just mentioned. PK had to cancel due to COVID issues. But I'm going to make the trek to Live Oak. I'm looking forward to going to the Dog Pound. Hawthorne plays at Swanee. Let's see how Hawthorne does against, the bigger classification. Their defense has been lights out. So they're going to take on a Swanee team that's 2-0. Looking forward to that game. Hawthorne and Swanee, maybe that's a good barometer, good test here early in the season to really find out where this Hawthorne team is at. Because we know that in Class 1A, they're going to be one of the top teams. But how do they stack up against higher classification teams, especially a team like Swanee, which, as I mentioned, is off to a 2-0 start?
Yeah, we got a Facebook Live here brought to you by Melton Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. I don't know if you know the answer to this. I'd heard about it. Okay, the quarterback that's at Bradford now used to be at Valdosta High School. He was ineligible there. They're wanting to know, how is he eligible to play at Bradford High School? It's from that
You don't know his
whole,
name, do you?
No, it's from that whole the coach that was at Valdosta paying players or whatever. It was a big drama. I think it's the coach that's been at multiple places in Alabama. And anyway, okay, we'll skip over that one. All right, so
yeah, I hadn't heard that. That's a good story that I'll look into.
Yeah, you have to look into it. You remember the coach that was living the two lives or whatever? He was in Hoover at one time, then he went to Valdosta.
Yeah.
I think it's that guy, Rush Propes. So
Okay.
apparently they were paying this kid at Valdosta. He was paying players, a bunch of other stuff going on. The kid was ineligible, and now he's playing quarterback at Valdosta. I think he's a very highly recruited kid. He's at Bradford now.
I'm guessing this. Yeah, I'm guessing this might be Amari Jones. I was just looking at their stats, but I had not heard that, so I'll have to ask about that.
Okay. Well, didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but
no, it's okay. That's all right.
So Brent says it was the coach that went from Hoover to Colquitt County. Now he's at Valdosta. He's yeah. So anyway, all right. So you said,
and Shane, I have a question. I have a question for you before we wrap up.
Sure. What is it?
Well, with 9/11, the 20-year anniversary coming up, I wanted to ask you about that 2001 season. And when 9/11 happened, obviously it affected sports, and how it affected you and the Gators.
Well, I was actually playing pro ball at that time.
Were you? Okay.
Yeah.
When did you finish up at Florida?
92. Yeah.
92. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm 51. So I was with the Bears, and I remember exactly. That was on a Tuesday morning, and Tuesday's the day off, so you do nothing. And my kids.
Okay.
I don't remember. Yeah, my kids were very, very young. I was sitting there eating breakfast and just happened to have the news on, and it was just wild. And being now we were 40 miles north of the city of Chicago is where our facility is, and that's where everybody lives. So you weren't in a huge city, but being close to downtown Chicago, it was a scary situation being in a major city. And obviously they canceled that week games, and it changed the world. But yeah, I wish I was still playing in college in 2001.
Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But I do remember that year that Florida did have their game. I think that was Tennessee.
Is that was Coach Spurrier's. That was probably one of his best teams. That's when Rex was at quarterback with Gaffney, and they had
Rex. Okay, thank you. All right.
Yeah, I think that's the game. I don't think it was a hurricane. I think it was 9/11 that changed that game to the end of the season, and we didn't play our best. But Coach Spurrier still thinks that's one of his top 2 or 3 teams he ever coached from a talent standpoint, and probably should have won. Played for the national title that year, but it didn't work out.
I remember that if they had played that game at the beginning of the year, Tennessee had a couple of players that were out that ended up coming back. And, because I remember I was at that game. It was a wild game, and Tennessee won, I think, by 2 or 3 points. But yeah, I think if that game had played at the beginning of the year and was not affected by 9/11, Florida goes on and plays for a national championship.
Yep. No doubt about it. Well, Mike, great stuff as always. We'll get you on periodically throughout the year. Have a good call over there in Sewanee. That should be a heck of a ball game.
Looking forward to it. All right, Shane, always good to talk with you. Have a great day.
Mike, before we let you go, let everybody know about the Main Street Daily News.
Okay, yes, I appreciate it. Go to mainstreetdailynews.com. We have high school coverage almost daily there. I will have a recap of that Hawthorne-Sewanee game late Friday night. But we've got some high school football previews there. We cover high school volleyball. Last night had the Buchholz girls cross country team on our show at Sonic Drive-In. I will have a preview of Buchholz girls cross country, because they are the #1 team in the state in Class 4A. So that story will be up later today. So if you want to see some good high school sports coverage, go to mainstreetdailynews.com. And of course, the prepzone.com. We still have stuff there. That's where a lot of our broadcasts are at as well. So the prepzone.com and mainstreetdailynews.com. Thanks, Shane. I appreciate it.
Good stuff as always, my man. Take care, Mike.
All right, you too. Thanks, Shane.
That's Mike Ridaught. Join us on the Titan MR Hotline. Going to take our final time out of this Thursday edition. Come back, wrap up the program.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, won't back down. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Great Clips, it's gonna be great. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, South State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co. Some of our touchdown sponsors are MB Listing, Cornerstone Financial, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avera and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Ruse Ogra Agent, State Farm Insurance, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Center State Bank is now South State Bank, but we still put business first. We understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. South State still has 4 convenient Alachua County locations. South State Bank, banking forward, member FDIC. I want to thank Mike Ridaught from the PrepZone.com and Main Street Daily News for joining us, and also our good friend, our college football analyst, Brent Beaird. This Day in Sports brought to you by Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. They're now hiring team members with all levels of experience, great culture and benefits, and opportunity for growth. $1,000 signing bonus for qualified positions. Give Comfort Temp a call, 352-376-2366. Back in 1960, the Denver Broncos beat the Boston Patriots 13-10 in the first ever American Football League game there in Boston. So that's brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Folks, hope you enjoyed the program. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We're getting closer and closer. Enjoy the National Football League kicking off tonight. Today's show's a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. We'll see.